Hello, fellow seekers. Welcome to the Seeker's Path with Dr. Ennis. I'm Dr. Ennis. From early in my life, I felt called. I knew that I was an intuitive healer and teacher. And I'm coming in this new work from my authentic, real self. My purpose is to be in alignment with who I really am, my truest self, and in alignment with the universe. And my mission is to help you access your deep, true self and to get in alignment in your universe, whatever that means, and to live it in this challenging physical reality that we're in. So I'm really glad you're here. This is part 2 of To Be or Not to Be, a little bit about my story, which I have come to see as a bit of this period of time, as a hero's journey. In part 1, I shared with you kind of the struggle and frustration that I was in, and burnout. And I really got restless. I got to that place where I was bumping up against the wall and this is what happens for me. I bumped up against the wall and I had to do something. I had to take some kind of action. And that's what led me into this whole change in life and getting the trailer and the traveling. That was a preparation for the hero's journey. So in late December, just before New Year's of 2022, somehow the financing came together for the trailer. I had the car, I had the stuff. My 2 cats and I packed up and headed for Rice, Texas to pick up the little trailer. This is a big country, and I can tell you from where I lived to Rice, Texas, that was about 3,000 miles. All in all, on that 3-month trip, I did 8,866 miles, give or take a few. I had some destination plans, and most of that went according to plan. But as you might imagine, life, we make those plans, and they say life is what happens when you're making plans. And lots of things went differently than I had planned or anticipated. And very gratefully, I didn't have any critical problems along the way, but lots of little things that I had to deal with, and being by myself, traveling as an older woman by myself with 2 cats, pulling this little trailer, having to back it up. I got quite good at that, actually. And let me back up a little. As part of my preparation for my trip, and as I often do around my birthday, I will get an astrological reading or a tarot reading, because I think it's both of those are wonderful intuitive tools that just help support me in my own process and sometimes decision making. But mostly my experience is they affirm things I already know, and that's helpful. So I had a reading done in fall of 2022, beginning my 60th year, and just, a couple months before I was leaving. And perhaps the most important part of the reading was this consistent theme over and over and over and over: you're protected. Now, I know that does not necessarily mean nothing bad will happen. But it gave me this sense of confidence that I am resilient, I'm smart, I'm a good problem solver. I can figure out anything that comes up along the way and I will deal with it. And I gotta say, that was a lot of comfort when I ran into frustrations or especially when because of the weather last winter, which in California and the Southwest, there was all that huge rain and I couldn't go to some places I had planned to. And you also might imagine it's very hard to get reservations in the Southwest in the wintertime. So I had to get creative in my problem solving. And it, it worked out. It worked out great. So in this process, it was very important to me to be in nature. So that's where I planned all of my longer stops so that I could be outside. I wasn't by the ocean. I was mostly in the desert or along a river. I camped for a couple of weeks along the Colorado River, which was a fascinating experience. And in those places, a lot of those places, I saw and heard coyotes most days. I heard owls at night. I didn't know wild burros were so common in the desert. And, they do their calling and at night. It was fantastic. It was just fantastic. And the desert blooms, the flowers, uh, later in my trip, it was just magnificent. And just being outside in a place that's more natural than in the middle of a city was so good, the quietness. And I was in my tiny little trailer. You'll see pictures of it. I was in my tiny little trailer with my cats who were used to having freedom going in and outside as much as they wanted. And they had to be on leashes, and we learned how to walk on leashes. It was fantastic. Sometimes it was stressful because I could only walk one at a time because they weren't that excited about it. Anyway, they're funny. And there were no big dramatic things that happened on my trip. And yet the process worked on me and the nature worked on me and the quiet time and the time alone. And mind you, I was working as a psychologist at that time. I had, my regular clients. But it worked on me over those 3 months. And I was just remembering when I came over the Pacific Coast Range in Northern California and got to the ocean again and got to the trees because there really aren't trees in the desert. And I got over the mountains and I got to the coast. I saw the ocean and the huge trees, and I smelled the trees and the ocean, and I just had this sense of, I'm home again. I'm home again. This is my place. But more importantly, in that last day of travel as I was coming up the Oregon coast, I realized I was really beginning actually to get a sense of how I was changing inside. This was such an important trip. The the confidence, the openness to uncertainty, to going new places. I'm not a super social person. So I'm not the one who's walking around meeting everybody. But I did in a quiet campground where I saw the coyote go by in the morning and somebody's out walking their dog. I did stop and talk, and it was wonderful and relaxed. So I came home with this feeling of being more in rhythm, I think, a little more, not completely, but a little more in rhythm with myself, and having been in those natural environments. And I felt this peacefulness that I hadn't felt in a while, because at home it was work as much as I could given my energy levels, work. There was always pressure about money, taking care of a house, trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I'm old, and, retirement, all the cultural pressures, and you should do this and that and that and that. And I came home freer from that in a way I could notice, in a way that my friends noticed. And that was maybe the beginning part of I had the preparation part that I told you about. Then the initial part of the hero's journey was this trip. And then I got home about April 1st of 2023, and I had no idea what was coming next. And that's what I'll share with you in part 3. So please subscribe to the channel, get on my website, and get on my my newsletter list, my email list. I'd love to stay in touch. Leave me comments and questions related to the channel. And most of all, remember to love yourself, act like it, share it, and that will change the world. Okay, seekers, I'll see you in the next video. Be well.